Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Trackman44 here. Hey, I know y'all probably remember this old thing here. This is an old, I can't remember if it's a 41 or 45H. This is the one I went through, did a whole bunch of stuff to. Didn't have to do anything to the engine, not even a carburetor yet. But I put new seals and things like that, new bearings on the input and all that. Split the tractor, did the whole routine, serviced the transmission, rear end, final drive, the whole bit. But I've always had the temporary tank on there while I took the time to service the regular gas tank, put it through the electrolysis process. So that's all done. It's been done now for months. And so it's time finally to put the gas tank back on and get it out of the shed so I can get something else in here. You know what I mean? Of course, there's been many other projects come and go, but they've been on the outside, they've been on the other side, all over the place. I was missing one of the 3 studs that actually hold the gas tank in place. So I went to every auto parts store yesterday in town, and even went by our farm supply store, could not find the 7/16 fine thread stud. We ain't gonna let that stop us. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make our own stud. Probably won't be absolutely the best, but I found one on Amazon. They wanted like $10.95 for it. I am paying $11 plus shipping for a little old piece of metal about that long. In sealing the tank, I went ahead and a little bit of the coat went down inside the threads, and of course it's going to be a little difficult to put in. So I chased it with a pipe tap, and the whole time I chased it with a pipe tap, I put air pressure in the other side, so any of the little flakes and everything will blow right out the tap as I'm tapping that out. But it's ready to thread in there really, really good now. And you can see we have 2 of the 3 studs in place. I'm missing this one over here. These are the original, 2 of the original rubbers that was under it. And you can see they're kind of makeshift. Somebody kind of cut it out of a piece of belting. So what I did, I just took a piece of belting the same thickness and took a hole saw and made 3 of my own rubber stops. So those will go right on there like that. And then right on here like this. And also on this one whenever we make the stud. So if you want to make a stud, first thing you got to do is go get you 2 bolts with the threads that you want on each end. And this needs to be about a 2 3/4 inch stud. So I'm going to cut both of these heads off. And we're going to bevel this down, and then we're going to build up slowly the weld, and then turn those down round, and we're going to end up with a 7/16 fine thread stud for the 3rd position over here. That's the donor floor mat for the 3 rubbers. And here's another tractor that's ready to come into the shop, get a little bit of repair work done to it. Probably not. 2 3/4 is what I need minimum, so it can be a little longer. Here's the 2 ends that's going to become welded together and create our stud. I'm going to spot this, turn it over and spot it again, make sure it maintains nice and straight and doesn't bow. Then we'll weld it all up and work it down. Again, you never pay attention to what something looks like when you get started. It's the finished product that's important. Okay, is this as good as a factory stud? No, quite frankly not. It's just a little bit off center, just a couple of degrees. This is going to work just fine. All it's got to do is just secure and hold this gas tank in place. It's got 3 mounting points. It doesn't matter if it's just a little bit crooked. Those are grade 8 bolts, and I use 70,000 pound wire on that wire welder. So I think whatever little bit I got on there and a little bit off ain't gonna matter at all. Anyway, I kind of like to make sure it runs halfway decently before I pull all the stuff off, so I know what to expect at the minimum whenever I put all the new stuff back on. So I think I can assume it's going to be running okay with all this stuff on here. So when we put the new gas tank on, got to make sure then that it's going to run at least as good as this, hopefully a little better. I've ran these temporary tanks on tractors for some of them 5 or 6 years, even longer than that. You know, if it runs okay with them and you don't have time to service the regular tank, it's okay, what the heck. If I think about it, I'll put up here somewhere up top, I'll put a link to the electrolysis process video on this particular tank. Don't have this much trouble with the Massey Harris tank. Half a hole off and I'm running into my breather right here. I eventually just turned the camera off and just got it, fought around and got it in there. But if you notice, the breather's loose now. I had to loosen the breather to get enough flex because of this flange around the tank in order to get it to move forward enough to drop in the holes. The next thing we got to do, I got to take my newly serviced sediment bowl, and I'm going to do away with this fitting here, which is a special, it's got a special rubber grommet that goes inside a special compression fitting. But I'm going to do away with that and come up with an 1/8 inch pipe thread by probably 1/4 inch OD compression. And this will be the outlet that'll come up over here and go over to the carburetor. Probably gonna make that out of 1/4 inch OD copper tubing. Okay, what I've got now is a 1/8 inch pipe thread by 1/4 inch OD compression 90. And I'm gonna go ahead and put a fresh fuel filter on. Normally there's a little bit too much restriction in a lot of the fuel filters that you'll still starve for fuel. You won't get enough fuel in these things. But just for the heck of it, I'm gonna put one in there temporarily, and then once I decide that it's going to be running okay, I'll go ahead and take it out when I'm sure there's absolutely nothing coming out of the fuel tank. Because this is the tank that I did the electrolysis on, but you can't get that line of sight on the electrolysis on the back side of the baffle that's inside the gas tank on these Internationals. I'm afraid that there might be some residual flaking and stuff on the back side of that damper. So I want to put that filter in there just to make sure, in addition to the sediment bowl, that everything is going to be okay. That's a long story, but that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, I run into a little bit of a problem. I got a 5/16 filter and I got a 5/16 line entering the carburetor, but I've got a 1/4 inch OD fitting coming out of the gas tank. Well, a 1/4 inch does not go inside 5/16, but like I say, living out here in the country, you can't run to town for every little bitty thing. So what you can do is take this 5/16 tubing, very gently put it in your vise there, and take a pair of needle nose. Without forcing it, I'm able to go in 1/4 inch. So I can go just a little bit harder and press this a little deeper. I'm going to put my finger at 1/2 inch so we have a rough idea. I'm in about 3/8 of an inch. My finger slipped a little bit, but I'm in there about 3/8 of an inch. Now, you'll wonder, what are you going to do about that? Well, if you have MAP gas, and if you have a portion of a stick of 15% silver solder, on these smaller pieces of tubing or smaller diameter tubing, you can get by with LP gas or MAP gas and a 15% silver solder stick with no flux. Takes a little longer. Now when you get copper that hot, what you're doing, you're oxidizing. See how it turns black out here? Well, it's oxidizing the copper because of, the oxygen mixing with the MAP gas, whatever. So that's going to be flaking and putting some black oxidation on the inside of the pipe. So you want to make sure you clean that pipe very, very well before you put any gas in it, because if not, you'll just flush those little black carbon particulate right into your carburetor. That's easily done just by air compressor, a good hard blow, or in this case here, I'll just take a little WD-40, squirt a little WD-40 through there. Look at the smoke coming out the other end. That's cooling down my joint and also cleaning out that carbon. Okay, there's a brand new 5/16 filter. I've got it into the 5/16 line. Got a new piece of hose on here, and here's our adapted 1/4 inch OD to 5/16 OD right here. So we have to put the clamp on there once I get it the right length. Now, a lot of guys don't like using rubber gas lines. This is actually a gas line rated rubber. That's the only kind that I buy for these old tractors. And we've been using them for years and years and years. Obviously, we don't go to the fields and just work with them, 8 or 10 hours at a time, but we've never had an issue. We've been doing it like this for many, many years getting tractors up and running in operation. But we may have an issue with that fuel filter. The weight of the fuel in the tank has got to overcome the restriction of that filter in order to feed that bowl. And we do have a little bit of a restriction with that 1/4 inch OD line, but the tractor not working hard, I'm not expecting any kind of an issue at all. Never have in the past, so there's no reason to think we will now. No time like the present. Let's put a little gas in and see if we're going to have any leaks. Don't know if the sediment bowl is going to hold or not, but we'll find out. A little bit of a dribble on the shutoff valve. Hopefully I can get that rectified, because if the shutoff valve doesn't shut off and my float sticks, that means that I can continuously drip through once the float bowl gets full and then drip out the carburetor inlet. So I'm completely full of fuel, no drips, no leaking anywhere except for on the shutoff knob itself. I got to put a clamp on this inlet yet. The fuel filter is all the way up to this level, which means gas is in the carburetor or ready to go into the carburetor. So all I need is a battery, and we'll fire this puppy up and see if it's going to run. But you know what? I think we're going to do that on a good cold start video tomorrow or the next day. It's time to quit for the evening, and everything is looking pretty good with the exception of that drip. So you know what? This is TrackMan 44, and I'm out of here, guys.